Marcus Thompson had served 3 tours in Afghanistan before an IED blast changed his life forever. Now sitting in his wheelchair at Romano's steakhouse on a quiet Tuesday evening, he never expected that ordering a simple dinner would trigger a confrontation that would bring an entire Marine battalion to his doorstep. What started as discrimination against a disabled veteran quickly escalated into something nobody saw coming. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The autumn rain drummed against the windows of Romano's steakhouse as Marcus Thompson wheeled himself through the heavy glass doors. The restaurant buzzed with the typical Tuesday evening crowd, families sharing meals, couples on dates, and business associates wrapping up deals over wine and prime cuts. The warm amber lighting and rich mahogany interior created an inviting atmosphere that Marcus had been looking forward to experiencing. He had chosen Romano's specifically for tonight. After months of physical therapy and adapting to life in his wheelchair, Marcus finally felt ready to venture out alone to somewhere beyond the usual chain restaurants near the VA hospital. His sister Rebecca had recommended Romano's, calling it the kind of place where they treat you like family. And Marcus desperately needed that feeling of normalcy. The hostess, a young woman named Ashley, with kind eyes and a genuine smile, greeted him warmly. "Good evening. Just one tonight?" "Yes, please. Somewhere quiet if you have it," Marcus replied, adjusting his Marine Corps cap, a habit he'd developed since coming home. Ashley grabbed a menu and led him toward a corner booth, naturally moving at his pace without making it obvious. She helped arrange the seating so his wheelchair fit comfortably, removed one of the chairs, and ensured he had easy access to everything on the table. Her natural courtesy reminded Marcus why Rebecca had spoken so highly of this place. "Your server tonight will be Jennifer, and she'll be right with you. Can I start you off with something to drink while you look over the menu?" "Coffee would be great, thank you." As Ashley walked away, Marcus took in his surroundings. The restaurant maintained an upscale but welcoming atmosphere. Soft jazz played in the background, mixing with the gentle murmur of conversations and the occasional clink of silverware against plates. For the first time in months, Marcus felt truly relaxed in public. Jennifer, his server, approached within minutes. She was probably in her early 30s, with the kind of professional warmth that suggested years of experience in hospitality. "Good evening. Ashley mentioned you'd like to start with coffee. I'll get that right out, and I see you're looking over our menu. Do you have any questions about our specialties tonight?" Marcus appreciated her natural approach. No awkward glances at his wheelchair, no overly loud voice, no patronizing attitude. Just normal, friendly service. "Actually, what would you recommend?" "I'm celebrating a bit tonight. First time out to a nice restaurant in a while." Jennifer's face brightened. "Well, congratulations on whatever you're celebrating. A ribeye is exceptional tonight, and if you're looking for something really special, the surf and turf never disappoints. The lobster tail comes from Maine, brought in fresh this morning. The surf and turf sounds perfect." As Jennifer headed to the kitchen with his order, Marcus settled back and pulled out his phone. He scrolled through messages from his rehabilitation group, other veterans who understood the daily challenges he faced. Tonight felt like a milestone worth sharing with them. The coffee arrived promptly, rich and aromatic, exactly what he needed on this cool October evening. Marcus found himself genuinely enjoying the atmosphere, watching other diners laugh and enjoy their meals. For nearly an hour, he felt like just another customer having a nice dinner out. His food arrived beautifully presented, a perfectly cooked ribeye alongside a butter-poached lobster tail, accompanied by roasted vegetables and garlic mashed potatoes. Jennifer checked on him twice during the meal, each time with genuine interest in his dining experience. Marcus was savoring his last few bites when everything changed. Dale Morrison, the restaurant's security guard, had been watching Marcus from across the dining room for the past 20 minutes. Dale was a heavy-set man in his late 40s who took his job perhaps too seriously. He wore his security uniform with an exaggerated sense of authority and had a tendency to view any situation through a lens of potential problems. Rather than solutions, Dale had noticed Marcus earlier but hadn't paid much attention until he observed what he interpreted as Marcus lingering too long at his table. In Dale's mind, the evening crowd was arriving, and tables needed to turn over efficiently. He failed to consider that Marcus was simply enjoying his meal at a normal pace. Without consulting with Jennifer or any of the restaurant management, Dale decided to take action. He approached Marcus's table with heavy footsteps that announced his arrival before he even spoke. "Excuse me, sir, but I'm going to need you to settle up and move along. We've got people waiting for tables." Marcus looked up, confused. He glanced around the restaurant and noticed several empty tables scattered throughout the dining room. "I'm sorry, I don't understand. I'm still finishing my dinner, and it doesn't look like you're particularly busy tonight." Dale's expression hardened. "Look, pal, we run a business here. You've been sitting here for over an hour, and we need this table for paying customers." "I am a paying customer," Marcus replied calmly, though he felt his pulse beginning to quicken. "I ordered the surf and turf. I'm nearly finished, and I haven't been causing any problems. Listen, we don't need your type hanging around here making other customers uncomfortable. This is a family establishment." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. The casual cruelty of "your type," whether referring to his disability, his status as a veteran, or simply his presence in a wheelchair, cut deep. Around them, nearby conversations began to quiet as other diners started noticing the confrontation. Marcus took a deep breath, drawing on the discipline his military training had instilled in him. "I'm not sure what you mean by my type, but I'm a customer who's paying for his meal and not bothering anyone. I'd like to finish my dinner in peace." Dale's voice grew louder, ensuring that more of the restaurant could hear him. "Don't get smart with me. You wheelchair people always think you deserve special treatment. Well, not here. I'm telling you to pay your bill and get out, or I'll have you removed." The restaurant had grown noticeably quieter, with many diners now openly staring at the unfolding scene. Marcus felt the familiar heat of humiliation rising in his cheeks, the same feeling he'd experienced in countless situations since returning home, where his disability made him a target for ignorance and cruelty. Jennifer appeared at the table, clearly flustered and embarrassed by her co-worker's behavior. "Dale, what's going on here?" "Mr. Thompson is one of our customers, and he's been nothing but polite all evening. Stay out of this, Jennifer. This is a security matter." "No, it's not," Jennifer replied firmly. "You're harassing a customer who's done nothing wrong." Marcus appreciated Jennifer's support, but he could see that Dale was becoming more agitated. The security guard's face was reddening, and his posture suggested he was preparing to escalate the situation further. "Look," Marcus said quietly, "I don't want to cause any trouble, but I paid for this meal, I'm finishing it, and I have every right to be here just like any other customer." "Rights?" Dale sneered. "Let me tell you about rights. I have the right to remove disruptive customers from this establishment, and that's exactly what I'm going to do." What happened next would be seared into the memory of everyone present. Dale reached toward Marcus's wheelchair, apparently intending to physically remove him from the restaurant. Marcus's military instincts kicked in immediately. "Don't touch my chair," he said sharply, his voice carrying the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to command. But Dale had already made his decision. He grabbed the handles of Marcus's wheelchair and began pushing him away from the table. Despite Marcus's clear objection and Jennifer's horrified protests, the entire restaurant fell silent except for the sound of Dale forcibly wheeling Marcus toward the exit, the wheelchair's wheels scraping against the floor as Marcus tried to resist. The diners stared in shock and disbelief at the unprecedented scene unfolding before them. As Dale pushed Marcus through the dining room, the veteran's military cap fell to the floor, revealing the scars on his head from the IED blast that had changed his life forever. The sight of those scars, combined with the Marine Corps insignia now lying on the restaurant floor, created a powerful and heartbreaking image that several diners would never forget. At the front door, Dale released the wheelchair with enough force that Marcus had to grab the wheels to prevent himself from rolling into the glass entrance. "Don't come back," Dale said loudly enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "We don't serve your kind here." Marcus sat in his wheelchair outside Romano's steakhouse, rain beginning to fall on his shoulders, processing what had just happened. He had served his country, survived combat, endured months of rehabilitation, and fought to rebuild his life, only to be physically removed from a restaurant for no reason other than ignorance and prejudice. What Marcus didn't know was that 3 tables away from where he'd been sitting, Staff Sergeant Carlos Rodriguez had witnessed the entire incident. Rodriguez was off duty, enjoying dinner with his wife, but what he'd just seen filled him with a rage that military discipline could barely contain. Rodriguez had recognized Marcus immediately. Not personally, but as one of their own. The bearing, the calm under pressure, the dignity maintained even while being humiliated. And when Marcus's Marine Corps cap had fallen to the floor, revealing both his service and his sacrifice, Rodriguez knew he couldn't let this stand, as Marcus sat outside in the rain. Trying to process his humiliation, Rodriguez was already reaching for his phone. The message he was about to send would change everything. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Staff Sergeant Carlos Rodriguez stared at his phone screen, his jaw clenched tight as he typed the message that would ignite a firestorm. His wife, Maria, noticed his sudden tension and followed his gaze toward the restaurant's entrance, where Marcus Thompson sat alone in his wheelchair, rain dampening his shirt. "Carlos, what's wrong?" she whispered. "Something that shouldn't happen to any Marine," he replied, his voice carrying the controlled fury of a career military man. "Especially not to one who gave everything for his country." Rodriguez's fingers moved quickly across his phone's keyboard, composing a message to his unit's group chat. But this wasn't just any unit. Rodriguez was part of the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force, and his contacts extended far beyond his immediate squad. The message he crafted was precise, factual, and devastating in its implications. Brothers witnessed a disabled Marine vet just get physically removed from Romano's steakhouse on Oakwood Ave by security for no reason other than being in a wheelchair. Marine served multiple tours, took IED blast, now being treated like garbage by some power-tripping civilian. "This is happening right now, location attached." He hit send and immediately began forwarding the message to 3 other group chats. His former drill instructors, his reserve unit buddies, and a network of Marine veterans who stayed in close contact across the state. Within 2 minutes, Rodriguez's phone began buzzing with incoming calls and messages. The response was immediate and overwhelming. "On my way, 15 minutes out," came from Sergeant Major Patricia Williams, a decorated veteran who lived across town. "This is bullshit. Getting the boys together now," replied Master Sergeant David Chen, whose auto repair shop employed 6 former Marines. "Rally Point Romano's parking lot. ETA 20 minutes, messaged Captain James Mitchell, recently returned from deployment. Rodriguez stood up from his table, kissed his wife, and walked outside to where Marcus remained sitting in the light rain. The veteran looked up as Rodriguez approached, and something in the staff sergeant's bearing immediately communicated that he understood exactly what had just happened. "Marine?" Rodriguez asked simply. Marcus nodded. 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines. "Afghanistan, 3 tours. Staff Sergeant Carlos Rodriguez, 2nd MEF. I saw what happened in there." He extended his hand, which Marcus shook firmly. "That was complete garbage, brother. Thanks for saying something, but you don't need to get involved. I'll just head home." Rodriguez shook his head. "With respect, you're not going anywhere. That man disrespected not just you, but every Marine who's ever served. We don't let that slide." As they spoke, the first vehicle pulled into Romano's parking lot. A lifted Ford F-250 with Marine Corps stickers across the rear window. Out stepped Gunnery Sergeant Michael Torres, still wearing his utilities from the base. He approached Rodriguez and Marcus with the purposeful stride of someone accustomed to command. "Sit, Rep," Torres requested. Rodriguez quickly briefed him on what he'd witnessed, while Marcus provided additional details about Dale Morrison's behavior. Torres's expression grew darker with each detail. "Copy that. Assets are rolling in from all directions. This is about to become a very educational evening for Mr. Morrison." Inside Romano's steakhouse, Dale Morrison was basking in what he perceived as a victory. He strutted back to his position near the bar, accepting what he interpreted as approving nods from some customers, though most diners were actually looking at him with disgust and disbelief. Jennifer approached the hostess station where Ashley was standing, both women clearly shaken by what they'd witnessed. "I can't believe Dale just did that," Ashley whispered. "That man was nothing but polite the entire evening." "I'm calling Mr. Romano right now," Jennifer replied, pulling out her phone. "This is completely unacceptable. Dale had no right to treat any customer like that, especially not a veteran." Manager Thomas Kellerman had watched the entire incident from the kitchen doorway, torn between intervening and avoiding confrontation with Dale, who had a reputation for aggressive behavior. Kellerman had been planning to speak with Dale privately, but Jennifer's phone call to the owner forced his hand. "Jennifer, wait," Kellerman said, approaching the hostess station. "Let me handle this internally before we involve Mr. Romano." "No way, Thomas. What Dale did was assault. That customer was physically removed from our restaurant for absolutely no reason. Mr. Romano needs to know immediately." Outside, the parking lot was beginning to fill with vehicles. Pickup trucks, motorcycles, SUVs and sedans, all bearing the unmistakable signs of military service. Marine Corps emblems, unit stickers, veteran license plates, and American flags marked nearly every vehicle that pulled into Romano's lot. Sergeant Major Williams arrived in a pristine Jeep Wrangler, followed closely by a convoy of 3 cars carrying Marines from the local recruiting station. They'd been in the middle of an administrative meeting when the messages started flooding their phones. Master Sergeant Chen's arrival was particularly notable. His auto shop's work truck pulled up with 4 of his employees, all former Marines who'd dropped their tools the moment Chen explained the situation. Captain Mitchell brought perhaps the most significant backup. He'd been at the Marine Corps League monthly meeting when Rodriguez's message reached him, and he'd simply announced to the room what was happening. 12 retired Marines, ranging in age from their 20s to their 70s, had immediately volunteered to respond. By the time the parking lot held 20 vehicles, Marcus realized this situation had grown far beyond what he'd expected. "Rodriguez, this is incredible, but I don't want anyone getting in trouble because of what happened to me." "Brother," replied Sergeant Major Williams, who'd taken informal command of the growing group. "This stopped being just about you the moment that security guard put his hands on your wheelchair. This is about principle. The Marines organized themselves with the efficiency that decades of training had ingrained in them. Senior NCOs coordinated positions, ensuring that all exits from the restaurant were visible, while maintaining a respectful distance from the building itself. Inside Romano's, the first sign that something unusual was happening came from customers near the windows. "Honey, look at all those cars in the parking lot," a woman mentioned to her husband. "And look at all those people in military uniforms." Dale Morrison was refilling the coffee station when he overheard the comment. He glanced toward the windows and felt his stomach drop. The parking lot was filling with what appeared to be military personnel, and more vehicles were arriving by the minute. "What the hell?" Dale muttered, moving closer to the window for a better view. Thomas Kellerman had finished his phone call with restaurant owner Vincent Romano, and the conversation had not gone well for Dale. Romano was driving to the restaurant immediately, and he'd made it clear that Dale's employment was in serious jeopardy. "Dale, I need to speak with you immediately," Kellerman called from across the restaurant. But Dale was fixated on the scene outside. He could see the veteran he'd removed sitting in his wheelchair, now surrounded by what appeared to be dozens of military personnel. The implications were beginning to dawn on him, and panic was setting in. "Dale!" Kellerman's voice was sharper now. "Thomas, look outside. There's like 50 soldiers out there." "Marines," corrected an elderly customer who'd been quietly watching the situation unfold. "Those are Marines, and they're here because of what you did to that young man." The customer was Harold Hank Peterson, a Korean war veteran who'd been dining alone at Romano's weekly for the past 5 years. He'd watched Dale's treatment of Marcus with growing outrage, and now he was witnessing what he recognized as the Marine Corps taking care of its own. "This is what happens when you disrespect a Marine," Hank continued, his voice carrying across the now quiet restaurant. "Especially one who sacrificed for his country. You picked the wrong veteran to mess with, son." Dale's face had gone pale. Through the window, he could see more vehicles arriving, and the crowd in the parking lot was growing steadily. What had seemed like a simple matter of removing an unwanted customer was rapidly becoming something far more serious. Jennifer approached Kellerman with her phone in hand. "Mr. Romano is 5 minutes out, and he wants Dale suspended immediately pending investigation." "Dale, you need to remove your uniform and clock out right now," Kellerman announced loudly enough for nearby customers to hear. "You can't fire me over this. I was doing my job." "Your job is to provide security, not to assault customers," Kellerman replied firmly. "Especially disabled veterans who were causing no problems whatsoever." Outside, the Marine contingent had grown to nearly 40 personnel, with more arriving every few minutes. The organization was remarkable. Senior leaders coordinated the response, while younger Marines maintained discipline and bearing that would have made any drill instructor proud. Rodriguez's phone continued buzzing with messages from Marines across the region who were either en route or expressing support. The network effect was extraordinary. Each Marine who received the initial message had forwarded it to their own contacts, creating a cascading response that reached far beyond what anyone had anticipated. Sergeant Major Williams gathered the senior leadership for a quick coordination meeting. "Gentlemen, we're here to send a message about how Marines treat their own, but we're going to do this by the book. No one enters the restaurant unless invited, no confrontations with staff, and absolutely no physical altercations. We make our point through presence and discipline." The assembled Marines nodded their understanding. This wasn't about revenge. It was about brotherhood, respect, and ensuring that Marcus Thompson understood he wasn't alone. As the crowd continued to grow, the local news media began to take notice. Channel 7's mobile news unit pulled into the parking lot, followed quickly by reporters from 2 other stations who'd been monitoring police scanners, and social media for breaking stories. The sight of dozens of Marines assembled in defense of a disabled veteran was exactly the kind of story that would capture public attention, and the reporters began setting up their equipment to cover what was rapidly becoming a significant local news event. Inside Romano's, Dale Morrison realized his situation was deteriorating rapidly. The parking lot looked like a military rally. Local news crews were arriving, and his boss was en route to almost certainly fire him. What had started as Dale's abuse of power against a vulnerable veteran was about to become a very public reckoning, and the Marines gathering outside weren't finished yet. Vincent Romano's black BMW pulled into the parking lot of his restaurant at exactly 8:47 p.m., and what he saw made him slam on the brakes in disbelief. His establishment was surrounded by what looked like a military formation. Dozens of Marines in various uniforms standing at respectful attention throughout the parking lot. With more vehicles still arriving, Romano had owned restaurants for 23 years, but he'd never encountered anything like this. As he stepped out of his car, the gravity of the situation hit him immediately. This wasn't just about one customer complaint. This was a public relations disaster that could destroy his business overnight. Channel 7's lead reporter, Sarah Chen, was already conducting interviews with some of the assembled Marines. Her cameraman captured the remarkable sight of the disciplined gathering. while she spoke with Sergeant Major Williams about what had brought so many service members to Romano's parking lot on a Tuesday night. We're here because one of our brothers was disrespected and physically assaulted, simply for being disabled. Williams explained to the camera, "When you serve your country and sacrifice your body in combat, you shouldn't have to worry about being thrown out of a restaurant for existing." Inside the restaurant, the atmosphere had become increasingly tense. Word of the growing crowd outside had spread throughout the dining room, and many customers were requesting to pay their bills early so they could leave. Others, however, were moving to tables near the windows, drawn by the unprecedented scene unfolding in the parking lot. Dale Morrison had retreated to the employee break room, frantically making phone calls to friends and family, trying to explain a situation that was spiraling completely out of his control. His hands shook as he scrolled through social media, watching in horror as videos and photos from the parking lot began appearing on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Someone had recorded his confrontation with Marcus and posted it online with the caption, "Security guard assaults disabled Marine veteran." The video was already accumulating hundreds of views and angry comments, and Dale realized that his face and actions were about to become infamous across the internet. Thomas Kellerman intercepted Romano at the front door, briefing him quickly on the evening's events before the owner could see the full scope of the situation outside. "Mr. Romano, I need to prepare you for what you're about to see." Dale Morrison physically removed a disabled Marine veteran from table 12 for no legitimate reason. The veteran was polite, paid his bill, and caused no problems. Dale grabbed his wheelchair and forced him out of the restaurant. Romano's face darkened as he processed this information. "Please tell me you're exaggerating." "I wish I was." And somehow word got out to the local Marine community. "That's why we have what appears to be half the Marine Corps assembled in our parking lot." Romano looked through the glass doors at the scene outside and felt his stomach drop. The parking lot was filled with Marines. News crews were setting up equipment, and his restaurant had become the center of a story that could end his career. "Where's Dale now?" "Break room, probably updating his resume," Kellerman replied grimly. "And the veteran?" "Still outside with the Marines. They've been completely respectful, but they're not leaving." Romano took a deep breath and made the decision that would define how this crisis would be resolved. "Get Dale out here immediately, and find out which table the veteran was sitting at. I want to see his receipt and understand exactly what happened." Meanwhile, in the parking lot, Marcus Thompson was experiencing something he'd never encountered in his military career or civilian life. He was surrounded by Marines from every era of service. Young corporals fresh from boot camp stood alongside grizzled master sergeants with decades of experience. Retired colonels chatted with active duty privates, all united by their shared commitment to ensure that no Marine would face discrimination alone. The crowd had grown to over 60 Marines, with vehicles still arriving from as far as 2 hours away. Social media had amplified Rodriguez's original message, reaching Marine units, veteran organizations, and military families across 3 states. Colonel Rebecca Martinez arrived in her service dress blues, having driven directly from a retirement ceremony at the base. As the highest-ranking officer present, she naturally assumed coordination of the response, though she was careful to defer to the senior NCOs who had organized the initial gathering. "Gentlemen, what we have here is a teachable moment," Colonel Martinez addressed the assembled group. "We're going to demonstrate to this community what it means when Marines take care of their own. But we're going to do it with the professionalism and dignity that reflects our core values." The Marines responded with a collective "Oorah" that could be heard inside the restaurant, causing several diners to look nervously toward the windows. Harold Peterson, the Korean War veteran who'd been dining inside, made a decision that would add another powerful element to the evening's events. He asked his server to box up his meal, paid his bill, and walked outside to join the Marines in the parking lot. "Mind if an old soldier joins you Marines?" Peterson asked Colonel Martinez, rendering a crisp salute despite being in civilian clothes. Army? Martinez asked, returning his salute. Korean War, 1952 to 1954. Saw what happened to that young Marine inside, and it wasn't right. You boys are doing the right thing. Peterson's presence added another dimension to the story. This wasn't just about Marines supporting Marines. It was about veterans across all branches and generations standing together against discrimination. The news coverage was expanding rapidly. Channel 7's initial report had been picked up by the regional network, and social media posts from the scene were going viral. The hashtag #JuxMarines for Marcus began trending locally, with supportive messages pouring in from across the military community. Inside Romano's, Dale Morrison finally emerged from the break room to face his boss. Vincent Romano took one look at Dale's pale, sweating face and knew that his employee understood the severity of what he'd done. Dale, I've been running restaurants for over 2 decades, and I have never been more ashamed of an employee's behavior. You physically assaulted a disabled veteran who was peacefully eating dinner at one of my tables. Mr. Romano, I was just trying to manage the dining room efficiently. He was taking up space, and I thought, you thought? Romano's voice rose. You thought it was appropriate to grab a man's wheelchair and physically remove him from my restaurant. You thought it was acceptable to tell a combat veteran that we don't serve his kind here? Dale's face went even paler as he realized that the exact details of his confrontation with Marcus had been reported to his boss. I want you to understand something very clearly, Romano continued. Those Marines outside? They're not going anywhere until this situation is made right. The news crews outside? They're broadcasting to the entire region about how my restaurant treats disabled veterans. The social media posts that are going viral right now, they all feature my restaurant's name alongside your discrimination. Thomas Kellerman approached with Marcus's receipt and the server reports from Jennifer and Ashley. Mr. Romano, here's the documentation. The customer ordered surf and turf, paid a $67 tab plus tip, was polite to all staff, and caused no disruptions whatsoever. Romano examined the receipt and witness statements, his anger building with each detail. So we humiliated a disabled veteran who spent nearly $70 at our restaurant, tipped generously, and treated our staff with respect. That's correct, sir. And now we have 60 Marines, multiple news crews, and a viral social media crisis because my security guard decided to be a bigot. Dale opened his mouth to protest, but Romano held up his hand. You're terminated immediately. Security will escort you out the back entrance because I don't want you anywhere near those Marines or those news cameras. You've done enough damage to my business and my reputation. Dale's termination was swift and final. Within minutes, he was being escorted out the restaurant's rear entrance by 2 kitchen managers. His security uniform confiscated and his access to the building permanently revoked. But Romano knew that firing Dale was only the beginning of addressing this crisis. The real challenge would be making things right with Marcus Thompson and the Marine community that had rallied to support him. Romano asked Kellerman to arrange a meeting with Colonel Martinez and the senior Marine leadership, hoping to find a path toward resolution that would demonstrate genuine accountability and respect for Marcus's service and sacrifice. Outside, the Marine gathering had become a powerful display of military brotherhood. The scene was orderly, disciplined, and respectful, but unmistakably resolute. These Marines weren't leaving until they were satisfied that justice had been served and Marcus had received the respect he deserved, as Romano prepared to face the Marines and address the situation he'd inherited from Dale's actions. He knew that the next few hours would determine whether his restaurant survived this crisis or became a cautionary tale about the consequences of discriminating against America's veterans. The storm Dale Morrison had unleashed was about to reach its full fury, and everyone involved was about to learn exactly what happens when you disrespect a Marine. Vincent Romano stood at the threshold of his restaurant, watching through the glass doors as Colonel Martinez organized the Marines with military precision. The parking lot had transformed into something resembling a ceremonial formation, with the assembled Marines creating a respectful perimeter around Marcus Thompson while maintaining clear sightlines to the restaurant entrance. The restaurant owner had faced many challenges in his 23 years of business, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. He was about to walk into a situation where his business's reputation, his personal integrity, and his respect for military service would all be tested simultaneously. Thomas Kellerman approached Romano with an update that would add another layer of complexity to the evening's events. "Mr. Romano, I just received a call from Mayor Patricia Hendricks. She's seen the news coverage and is en route to the restaurant. She wants to make a public statement supporting the veteran and addressing the discrimination." Romano nodded grimly. The involvement of city officials meant this incident had escalated beyond a simple customer service failure into a community-wide issue that would have lasting implications for everyone involved. "Any word from the police?" "Lieutenant Davis is here, but he's maintaining a low profile. The Marines have been completely peaceful, so there's no legal issue to address. Davis told me he's here primarily to ensure traffic flow isn't disrupted and to provide assistance if requested." Lieutenant Frank Davis of the city police had indeed arrived, but his role was entirely supportive. He'd served 2 tours in Iraq as a military police officer before joining the civilian force, and he understood exactly why the Marines had assembled. His presence was a gesture of solidarity rather than law enforcement. Outside, the media coverage had expanded significantly. Channel 7's initial report had been picked up by CNN's affiliate network, and reporters from 3 additional television stations had arrived to cover what was being described as an unprecedented show of military solidarity in response to veteran discrimination. Social media activity around the incident was exploding. The hashtag #NowMarinesForMarcus was trending nationally, with supportive messages pouring in from military personnel, veterans organizations, and civilian supporters across the country. Video footage of the disciplined Marine formation outside Romano's was being shared thousands of times, creating a powerful visual narrative about military brotherhood and veteran support. Marcus Thompson sat in his wheelchair at the center of this extraordinary display of support, still processing the magnitude of what had developed from his simple desire to enjoy dinner at a nice restaurant. The Marines surrounding him represented every aspect of corps service: active duty, reserves, retirees, and veterans spanning multiple decades of service. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, whose initial message had sparked this massive response, approached Marcus with an update on the situation inside the restaurant. "Brother, the owner fired the security guard and wants to meet with our leadership to address this situation properly. Colonel Martinez is coordinating our response." Marcus nodded, though part of him still felt overwhelmed by the attention. "I appreciate everything you all have done, but I don't want this to become bigger than it needs to be. With respect, it became bigger the moment that man put his hands on your wheelchair," replied Sergeant Major Williams, who had overheard the conversation. "This isn't just about you anymore. It's about how our society treats veterans who sacrificed for their country." Colonel Martinez gathered the senior Marine leadership for a brief coordination meeting. The group included Williams, Rodriguez, Master Sergeant Chen, Captain Mitchell, and retired Colonel Patrick O'Brien, who had arrived from the Marine Corps League with a dozen additional veterans. "Gentlemen, we have an opportunity here to turn this incident into something positive," Martinez explained. "The restaurant owner wants to make this right. The media is covering our response professionally, and we have the attention of the entire community." "What are you thinking, ma'am?" asked Master Sergeant Chen. "We accept the owner's invitation to meet, but we do it publicly. We give Marcus the opportunity to address how he wants this resolved, and we demonstrate to this community what accountability and respect look like." The plan that emerged from their discussion was elegant in its simplicity. They would accept Romano's request for a meeting, but it would take place in the restaurant's front entrance area, visible to both the assembled Marines and the media coverage. Marcus would be given the primary voice in determining what constituted an appropriate resolution. Inside Romano's, the remaining diners had largely finished their meals and departed, leaving the restaurant nearly empty except for staff and the few customers who had stayed to witness the unfolding events. The atmosphere was tense but respectful, with employees clearly understanding that they were part of a situation that would be remembered long after this evening ended. Jennifer, the server who had defended Marcus during Dale's confrontation, approached Romano with a request that would add another powerful element to the resolution. "Mr. Romano, I'd like to personally apologize to that veteran for what happened to him in our restaurant. Dale's behavior doesn't represent who we are as a staff, and I want Mr. Thompson to know that. That's very professional of you, Jennifer. When we meet with the Marines, I'll make sure you have that opportunity." Ashley, the hostess who had originally seated Marcus, echoed Jennifer's sentiments. What Dale did was horrible. That gentleman was nothing but kind and polite. From the moment he walked in, Romano realized that his staff's genuine remorse and desire to make amends would be crucial to rebuilding trust with the military community. Their authentic reactions to Dale's behavior demonstrated that the discrimination was the action of one individual, not the culture of the restaurant. At 9:15 p.m., Romano finally walked outside to face the Marines and address the situation he'd inherited from his former security guard's actions. The sight that greeted him was both humbling and intimidating. Dozens of Marines in various uniforms standing at respectful attention. With Marcus Thompson at the center of their formation, Colonel Martinez stepped forward to greet Romano, her bearing reflecting both the dignity of her rank and the seriousness of the situation they were addressing. "Mr. Romano, I'm Colonel Rebecca Martinez. We appreciate your willingness to address this situation directly. Colonel, I want to start by saying that what happened to Mr. Thompson was completely unacceptable and does not represent the values of my restaurant or my staff. The individual responsible has been terminated immediately. We appreciate that action, but we'd like to hear from Corporal Thompson about how he believes this situation should be resolved." Romano approached Marcus, who was surrounded by the protective formation of his fellow Marines. The restaurant owner had prepared remarks, but facing the veteran who had been so badly treated in his establishment, he found himself speaking from the heart instead. "Mr. Thompson, I am deeply sorry for what you experienced in my restaurant tonight. As a business owner and as an American, I am ashamed that a veteran who served our country was treated with such disrespect in my establishment." Marcus looked up at Romano, studying the man's face for signs of sincerity. What he saw was genuine remorse and a desire to make amends. "Mr. Romano, I appreciate your apology. What happened tonight was humiliating and painful, but what these Marines have shown me is that I'm not alone. The question is, what are you going to do to ensure this never happens to another veteran?" Romano had anticipated this question and had prepared a comprehensive response that would demonstrate his commitment to preventing future discrimination. "Mr. Thompson, first, I'm implementing mandatory sensitivity training for all staff regarding service to customers with disabilities and veterans. Second, I'm establishing a clear policy that any employee who discriminates against customers based on disability, veteran status, or any other protected characteristic will be immediately terminated. Third, I want to make my restaurant a place where veterans and military families know they're welcome and respected." The assembled Marines listened carefully to Romano's commitments, evaluating whether his response demonstrated genuine understanding of the severity of what had occurred. Marcus nodded slowly. "Those are good steps, Mr. Romano, but I want something else. Name it. I want you to hire veterans. Show the community that you value military service by giving veterans opportunities to work in an environment where they'll be respected." Romano's face brightened. Mr. Thompson, that's an excellent idea. I commit to prioritizing veteran hiring for all future positions, and I'll work with local veteran organizations to identify qualified candidates. Colonel Martinez stepped forward. Mr. Romano, the Marine Corps and the broader military community will be watching to see if these commitments are kept. We expect follow-through, not just promises. You have my word, Colonel, and you have my invitation. I'd like Mr. Thompson to return as my guest, along with any Marines who'd like to join him, so we can demonstrate that Romano's is a place where veterans are truly welcome. The crowd of Marines began to stir with approval at Romano's response. His commitment to concrete action, combined with his obvious understanding of the seriousness of what had occurred, suggested that this crisis might be transforming into an opportunity for positive change. Mayor Patricia Hendricks arrived just as Romano was concluding his public commitment to the Marines. Her presence would add the final official element to the evening's resolution. As the city's leadership weighed in on the importance of veteran respect and community accountability, the storm that had begun with Dale Morrison's discriminatory actions was about to conclude with a demonstration of how communities can come together to support veterans and ensure that service and sacrifice are honored rather than dismissed. Mayor Patricia Hendricks arrived at Romano's steakhouse with her Chief of Staff and the city's Director of Veteran Affairs, immediately grasping the significance of what she was witnessing. The sight of over 70 Marines maintaining a dignified formation in support of a discriminated veteran represented exactly the kind of community solidarity she hoped to see in her city as she approached the gathering. The mayor noticed something remarkable about the Marine formation. Despite the cold October evening and the emotional intensity of the situation, every Marine present maintained perfect military bearing. This wasn't an angry mob. It was a disciplined demonstration of brotherhood that spoke volumes about military values and veteran support. Colonel Martinez, Mayor Hendricks called out as she approached the leadership group. I'm Mayor Hendricks. I came as soon as I heard about this incident. The city stands firmly behind our veterans and against any form of discrimination. Colonel Martinez rendered a crisp salute, which the mayor returned with obvious respect. Ma'am, we appreciate the city's support. Mr. Romano has made significant commitments to address this situation and prevent future discrimination against veterans. The mayor's presence attracted additional media attention, with camera crews positioning themselves to capture her statement. Channel 7's Sarah Chen approached with her microphone, recognizing that the mayor's response would become part of the broader narrative about how communities support their veterans. Mayor Hendricks, what's your reaction to tonight's events and the Marine Corps response? What happened to Corporal Thompson was unacceptable in any community, but especially in a city that prides itself on supporting our veterans. However, what I'm witnessing here tonight, this incredible display of military brotherhood, reminds me why we're so proud to have these Marines as part of our community. The mayor's statement was broadcast live, reaching viewers across the region and adding official government support to the evening's events. Her words would later be quoted in national news coverage of the incident. Marcus Thompson, who had remained relatively quiet during the negotiations between Romano and the Marine leadership, finally stood up from his wheelchair with the assistance of his leg braces. The sight of the disabled veteran rising to address the crowd created a powerful moment that would be remembered by everyone present. Marines, friends, everyone who came out tonight, I want you to know that what you've done here means more to me than I can express. When I was sitting outside in the rain, humiliated and alone, I never imagined that this community would rally around me like this. The assembled Marines listened in complete silence as Marcus continued, his voice carrying the emotion of someone who had been deeply moved by their support. Dale Morrison thought he could treat me like garbage because I'm in a wheelchair. He thought no one would care about one disabled veteran. Tonight, you proved him wrong in the most powerful way possible. You showed him, you showed this community, and you showed the country that Marines never leave anyone behind. The emotional impact of Marcus's words was visible throughout the crowd. Several of the younger Marines visibly struggled to maintain their composure, while the senior NCOs nodded with the understanding that comes from years of military service. Staff. Sergeant Rodriguez stepped forward with an announcement that would provide the perfect conclusion to the evening's events. Corporal Thompson, on behalf of every Marine present tonight, we want to invite you to be our guest at the Marine Corps Birthday Ball next month. It would be our honor to have you celebrate our Corps' birthday with us. The invitation to the Marine Corps Birthday Ball was one of the highest honors the local Marine community could extend. The annual celebration of the Corps' founding was a formal, prestigious event that brought together Marines from all eras of service. Marcus's acceptance was immediate and heartfelt. It would be my privilege to join you. Zempathy, the responding Ura. From 70, Marines created a sound that could be heard for blocks, a thunderous affirmation of brotherhood that marked the emotional climax of the evening's events. Vincent Romano, who had been observing this exchange, realized he had an opportunity to demonstrate his commitment to veteran support in a concrete way. Corporal Thompson, Colonel Martinez, I'd like to make an additional commitment. Romano's Steakhouse will be proud to sponsor the refreshments for your Marine Corps Birthday Ball celebration. It's the least we can do to show our support for the Marines who came to defend one of their own tonight. This unexpected offer from Romano provided tangible evidence that his earlier commitments weren't just words. Sponsoring the Marine Corps Birthday Ball would be a significant financial investment and a public demonstration of his restaurant's support for the military. Community Colonel Martinez accepted Romano's offer with appropriate military courtesy. Mr. Romano, that's a generous gesture that will be deeply appreciated by our entire Marine community. As the formal resolution concluded, the Marines began their departure with the same discipline and organization that had marked their arrival. Senior leaders coordinated the exodus to ensure traffic flow wasn't disrupted, while individual Marines took time to speak with Marcus personally before leaving. Master Sergeant Chen approached Marcus with a business card for his auto repair shop. Brother, if you ever need any work done on your vehicle, you come see us. Military discount, and we'll make sure everything's perfect for you. Captain Mitchell handed Marcus his contact information as well. If you ever need anything at all, you call me. The Marine Corps takes care of its own, and that includes you. Similar offers of support came from Marines throughout the crowd. Job opportunities, friendship, assistance with VA paperwork, invitations to unit functions. The network of support being extended to Marcus was comprehensive and genuine. Harold Peterson, the Korean War veteran who had joined the Marines in their support, approached Marcus before departing. Son, I've seen a lot of things in my 82 years, but what happened here tonight restored my faith in this generation of Americans. You should be proud of the brothers you served with. The media coverage of the evening's resolution was overwhelmingly positive. Sarah Chen's live reports had captured the dignity, discipline, and brotherhood displayed by the Marines, while also documenting Romano's commitments to change and the mayor's support for veteran rights. Social media activity around Marines for Marcus reached new heights as the story concluded. Videos of Marcus's speech, the thunderous Ura, response, and Romano's commitments were shared across multiple platforms, reaching millions of viewers nationwide. The story resonated far beyond the local community. Veterans organizations across the country shared the footage as an example of military brotherhood in action. Military families used the story to explain to their children why service members support each other. Civilian supporters expressed their admiration for the Marines' disciplined response to discrimination. 3 weeks later, Marcus Thompson returned to Romano's Steakhouse as Vincent Romano's personal guest. This time, he was joined by Colonel Martinez, Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, and a dozen other Marines who had participated in that October evening's events. The contrast with his first visit was remarkable. Marcus was greeted personally by Romano, who had implemented every commitment he'd made that night. The restaurant's new employee handbook included comprehensive anti-discrimination policies, and Romano had hired 2 veterans for his kitchen staff and 1 for management. Jennifer, the server who had defended Marcus during Dale Morrison's confrontation, was promoted to assistant manager in recognition of her integrity and professionalism. She personally served Marcus's table during his return visit, ensuring that his experience reflected the respect and dignity he deserved. Dale Morrison's story took a different trajectory. The viral videos of his discrimination against Marcus made him unemployable in customer service positions throughout the region. His actions became a cautionary tale used in corporate training programs about the consequences of discriminating against disabled individuals and veterans. The Marine Corps birthday ball that November was the largest in the local community's history. Marcus Thompson attended in dress blues, borrowed from Colonel Martinez's personal collection, modified to accommodate his wheelchair. When he was introduced to the assembled Marines as the veteran whose treatment had sparked their October demonstration, he received a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Romano's Steakhouse became a gathering place for the local military community, with Romano establishing a monthly Veterans Appreciation Night, featuring discounted meals and recognition for local service members. The restaurant's reputation, rather than being damaged by the October incident, was enhanced by Romano's response and his ongoing commitment to veteran support. 6 months later, Marcus Thompson was offered a position as Romano's customer service manager, specifically tasked with ensuring that all patrons received respectful, dignified treatment. His military leadership experience and personal understanding of discrimination made him uniquely qualified for the role. The evening that began with discrimination and humiliation had transformed into something far more powerful. A community had rallied around one of its veterans. Military brotherhood had been demonstrated in its finest form, and lasting changes had been implemented to ensure that no veteran would face similar treatment. Marcus Thompson's story became a testament to the power of military brotherhood, community solidarity, and the importance of standing up against discrimination. Most importantly, it proved that while one person's prejudice can cause tremendous pain, the collective response of good people can create positive change that lasts far beyond any single incident. The Marines who responded that October evening had honored their motto, Semper Fidelis, always faithful, in the most meaningful way possible, ensuring that no brother would stand alone against injustice. Up next, you got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.